Elijah Carter stood calmly, his stance relaxed yet ready as the leader of the Red Vultures struggled to his feet. The dim lights of Mayfield Cafe glinted off the brass knuckles the man still clenched in his fist. But his confidence wavered under Elijah's unyielding gaze. The other diners remained silent, watching in a mix of awe and terror. Miss Hattie peeked out from behind the counter, her trembling hands clutching a rolling pin, ready to intervene if necessary. "You're going to regret this, kid," the leader snarled, his voice low and dangerous, though the blood trickling from his split lip betrayed his earlier failure. "Probably not," Elijah replied evenly, his voice steady but sharp. The remaining 3 bikers moved in, their heavy boots thudding ominously against the wooden floor. Elijah's training kicked in as he assessed their positions. The first lunged at him with a wide, reckless punch. Elijah sidestepped, his movements fluid and precise, before delivering a calculated jab to the man's ribs. The biker staggered, clutching his side as he stumbled backward. The second attempted to grab Elijah from behind, but Elijah twisted free with ease, driving a sharp elbow into his stomach. The third biker hesitated, his eyes darting between Elijah and his fallen companions. He took a cautious step back, then another, before turning toward the door. "Smart choice," Elijah said, his tone carrying a mix of finality and calm. The leader of the gang wiped his bloodied lip and glared at Elijah, his bravado replaced with a simmering rage. "This isn't over," he growled. "We'll be back, and next time, you won't be so lucky. Not if you know what's good for you." Miss Hattie snapped, stepping out from the kitchen, her rolling pin raised like a sword. Her courage brought a flicker of smiles to the frightened patrons' faces. The sound of approaching sirens broke the tension, the faint blue and red lights visible through the cafe windows. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances before limping out the door, their leader grumbling curses under his breath. The first patrol car pulled into the lot as the cafe's customers exhaled collectively, the weight of fear lifting. Elijah turned to the mother and her 2 children, still huddled in the corner. "It's okay now," he said softly, his tone kind but firm. "They're gone, and they won't bother you again." The woman nodded, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching her children tightly. By the time the police finished taking statements, Elijah was back in his booth, finishing the last of his soda as though nothing had happened. Miss Hattie slid into the seat across from him, her expression a mix of pride and worry. "You didn't have to do that, Elijah," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Somebody had to." Elijah replied simply, his tone devoid of arrogance. What neither of them realized was that a diner patron had captured the entire confrontation on their phone and uploaded the video online. By the following morning, the video had gone viral, gaining millions of views and turning Elijah into an overnight sensation. Headlines praised him as a local hero, while social media buzzed with calls for justice and stories of bravery. The attention brought both support and challenges. Veterans groups, community leaders, and even rival biker clubs reached out, inspired by Elijah's courage. The cafe became a hub for visitors eager to meet the young man who had stood his ground. "I didn't sign up for this," Elijah confided to Miss Hattie one afternoon as reporters and curious onlookers filled the cafe. "It's not about fame, honey," she replied gently. "It's about showing people what's possible when you stand up for what's right." Despite the newfound attention, Elijah's life remained grounded in his values. He continued volunteering at the community center, organizing programs for at-risk youth, and helping with local outreach efforts. Meanwhile, the Red Vultures disappeared from town, at least for a while. 1 week later, the gang leader, now sporting a sling on his arm, showed up at the community center. "We need to talk," he said, his voice subdued. Elijah regarded him cautiously before nodding. They moved to a quiet room where the leader, whose name was Travis, shared his story. Once a soldier, Travis had struggled to find purpose after returning from service, eventually turning to the gang for camaraderie. But recent events had forced him to reevaluate his choices. "I don't want this life for my son," Travis admitted, pulling out a photo of a boy about Elijah's age. "Then let's change it," Elijah said, his tone firm yet encouraging. Over time, Travis and several of his former gang members began volunteering at the community center, assisting with bike repairs and mentoring local youth. Their transformation sparked a wave of change, with other clubs and organizations joining the effort. The center became a symbol of unity and hope, a place where people from all walks of life came together. Months later, the cafe was no longer just a roadside stop. It had become the heart of a town transformed by courage and kindness. Elijah, still only a teenager, had become a leader, not through fame or force, but through quiet strength and an unwavering belief in doing what was right. One evening, as he sat by the window of the bustling cafe, Elijah reflected on how a single stand had grown into something far greater. The toughest battles, he realized, aren't always fought on distant battlefields. They happen in the everyday moments where we choose to stand up for one another. Probably not, Elijah replied, his stance relaxed but unwavering. The remaining 3 bikers exchanged glances before circling him, their heavy boots reverberating against the wooden floor. Elijah's training kicked in instinctively. The first biker lunged with a wild punch, telegraphing his movements. Elijah sidestepped with ease, delivering a sharp jab to the ribs that left the man gasping for breath. The second attempted to grab Elijah from behind, but Elijah twisted free, spinning into an elbow strike that sent the man doubling over in pain. The third hesitated, his confidence faltering as he watched his comrades falter. With one last uncertain glance at Elijah, he took a step back, then another, before retreating toward the door. Smart choice, Elijah said, his tone measured but firm, turning his attention back to the gang leader, who was struggling to his feet. Elijah asked, "Now, are you going to keep this up, or are you ready to leave?" The leader's bravado had evaporated. He spat out his defiance. "You're going to pay for this, kid. Nobody messes with the red vultures. Nobody messes with the people I'm protecting." Elijah shot back, his voice steady, his resolve unshaken. The distant wail of sirens grew louder, and the bikers exchanged uneasy glances. The leader, now limping, muttered under his breath, "We'll be back. Not if you know what's good for you." Miss Hattie chimed in, stepping out from the kitchen with a rolling pin gripped tightly in her hands. Her fierce glare added a touch of levity to the tense scene, earning a few scattered chuckles from the relieved patrons. The bikers limped out just as the first patrol car pulled into the lot. Elijah turned to the mother and her 2 children, still huddled in a corner. He crouched to meet their eyes, speaking softly, "It's okay now. They won't bother you again." The mother nodded, her eyes brimming with tears of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching her children tightly. By the time the police had taken statements and cleared the scene, Elijah was back in his booth, sipping the last of his soda as if nothing had happened. Miss Hattie slid into the seat across from him, her face a mix of pride and concern. "You didn't have to do that, you know," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Somebody had to." Elijah replied simply, shrugging as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Neither of them realized that a diner patron had captured the entire confrontation on their phone. By the following morning, the video was everywhere, garnering hundreds of thousands of views and headlines praising Elijah as a local hero. His quiet life was about to become anything but. The video brought an outpouring of attention and support. Veterans groups, community leaders, and even rival biker clubs reached out, inspired by Elijah's bravery. The community center where Elijah volunteered was soon overwhelmed with offers of assistance. Local bikers, many of whom had once been rivals, began showing up, eager to help in any way they could. "I didn't sign up to be famous," Elijah said one afternoon as the cafe buzzed with reporters and curious onlookers. "It's not about fame, honey," Miss Hattie replied, her voice filled with affection. "It's about showing people what's possible when you stand up for what's right." Though the red vultures had disappeared from town, Elijah knew it wasn't over. Sure enough, a week later, the gang leader returned, his arm now in a sling. He walked into the community center where Elijah was volunteering. "We need to talk," he said, his voice subdued. Elijah regarded him warily but nodded. leading him to a quiet room. Over the next hour, the man, whose name was Travis, shared his story. A former soldier, he had struggled to adjust to civilian life, eventually joining the gang for a sense of belonging. But after the incident at the cafe, he found himself questioning everything. "I don't want this life for my son," Travis admitted, pulling a crumpled photo of a boy from his jacket pocket. The boy looked about Elijah's age. "Then let's change it," Elijah said, his tone firm yet understanding. With Elijah's guidance, Travis and several other gang members began volunteering at the community center. At first, they took on small tasks like cleaning and organizing, but soon they embraced larger roles, mentoring at-risk youth and repairing bikes for local families. Word spread quickly, and soon other motorcycle clubs joined in, transforming the center into a vibrant hub of hope and unity. Over the next few months, the town underwent a remarkable transformation. The Red Vultures disbanded, replaced by a new group dedicated to service and mentorship. Elijah worked tirelessly, organizing programs that brought people together, from bike repair workshops to neighborhood cleanups. The video of the cafe incident became a powerful symbol of what could happen when one person took a stand. By the end of the year, the cafe, once a quiet roadside spot, had become a bustling gathering place for people from all walks of life. Elijah, still just a teenager, had become a leader and a beacon of hope for his town. One evening, as he looked out at the bustling cafe, he reflected on how a single act of courage had sparked a movement. The fight that began with a stand against bullies had blossomed into something much larger, a reminder that even the smallest actions can create ripples of change.